Expert Talk.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Peyman Raoofi, clinical psychologist, the host of Expert Talk show. I'm grateful that once again you decided to join our show, and we hope we can have discussions here that can help you and be informative to you and your family members. Today I have a guest here at the studio, Ayeneh, and I'm very, very pleased that I have a friend of mine, a very good clinical psychologist and a scholar that is here in the studio today, and we can have a good discussion about different topics on dating, relationships, applications, burnouts, and many other topics that I hope you enjoy it today. Dr. Richard Espinoza, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Great that you accepted my invitation and you are here today at the studio. Dr. Richard Espinoza, or he goes by Dr. E, is a clinical psychologist, and he works with people with diverse identities, different backgrounds, sexual orientations, and people with all ages. He is working with clients at his office with trauma, resiliency, recovery, LGBTQ plus community, and also psychology-informed matchmaking. We are very grateful that he is here today. Richard, let me ask you this question, and it seems like a lot of people these days are single.
Mm-hmm.
Why that is?
I think it's a multitude of reasons. I think, ironically, we have such access to people. We have such abilities for mass communication that I think it almost paralyzes us, paradoxically. Mm-hmm. We have the ability to go on an app that's free to download. We have the option to go on websites and so forth. And I think it's drawing people away from the natural ways that we used to interact, meet people, socialize. And so again, I think it's just ironically pulling us away from the human element of getting to know people. Mm-hmm. As a result, I feel a lot of single persons just feel stagnant. So they're doing what is now just socially accepted these days. They're downloading apps, they're on websites, they're creating profiles, they're swiping, they're chatting a little bit with other people, and it just tends to lead nowhere. So it's a lot of failure to launch. A lot of my clients are reporting, the ones who are unpartnered and a little bit frustrated by it.
Is that true to say that these social media and online access gives people the illusion of not being single?
Yes, I think again, it's a confluence of things. I think we have normalized parasocial relationships. So people feel like they are in a deep, intimate, personal relationship with people they've never met. And on the other end, the people such as celebrities, social influencers, or just anybody who's looking to garner a following also engages in that as well. So I think there's a barrier of two devices and then the parasocial nature, which is in our head. And yeah, I think there's so many reasons why people have the illusion that they're being social, the illusion that they have intimacy with another person through the internet, and in reality, it's just not happening.
Right, and I feel like when someone is on social media, and on some of these pages like TikTok or Facebook, Instagram, and they have many followers and they have many likes, let's say, that person might feel like, oh, I'm very popular, I'm very social, and I'm able to have all these friends. And because literally some of them are called friends on this social media. And then I believe it can give that illusion of, hey, I have so many friends. I have like hundreds and thousands of people that are my friend, and they like my posts, and they make comments, and they say, oh, fantastic, good job, this and that. And then they might feel like, oh, these are all my friends I have, and I don't feel like I'm single.
Agreed. And again, there's always that illusion that, well, if I want to date, all I simply have to do is use this same medium, this same platform to find someone who's looking to date me. tying it back to like social influencers, for example. Yes, they may have hundreds of thousands of followers per se, or depending on what the app calls it, they may have hundreds of thousands of friends. And sure, there may be people messaging them or bots. We don't even know if they're in fact humans. So also feeding that in of you're so attractive, you're so intelligent, you're so accomplished, etc. I'd love to date you or have any other type of encounter with you. And so yes, it's just feeding this cycle.
Right.
There is the possibility for connecting with someone, but again, it just doesn't happen.
I'm glad you mentioned the bots, the robots that sometimes, yes, they do make comments and they do, all these kind of interactions, which totally makes it unrealistic and not humanistic in a way. So why being single is so uncomfortable? And we see that people want to get out of that singlehood and they want to be with someone, to have a partner, to get married and that. So why is being single so uncomfortable?
I will start off by, it doesn't have to be an uncomfortable experience, but yes, the majority at least of the people I work with do report being unpartnered as an uncomfortable experience. That discomfort, I feel, just starts off with our biology. We are a social species. We are meant to form tribes, form groups, and connect with people. Realistically, our biology, we're only supposed to really have a social circle of maybe 150 persons. And again, with social media, with mass communication, now we have the potential to connect to all 7 billion of us, if we can, and everyone has access to a device. So I think it's just innate. We want to connect. We want to be within a small, tight-knit group. But again, we have the illusion that we could be connected to the entire globe. So right off the bat, there's that barrier. And then on top of it, it's just social pain a lot of people are feeling. So we're all well aware of the loneliness epidemic, and it's especially in the United States impacting cisgendered men. And we understand that. And still, that social pain, strangely enough, is actually a healthy thing. It shows that you are a human, you're part of this species, you're meant to connect, yet you're not. So that social pain, that loneliness, those feelings of isolation, which sometimes can overlap with depressive symptoms, they just further reinforce this cycle of people having that desire to connect, sometimes putting themselves out there to connect, and not truly working out because not everyone has developed enough social skills to foster this. And then again, people are back in that single, unpartnered state, which is very uncomfortable for many folks.
As you mentioned, we had the Surgeon General of the United States saying that right now we are dealing with the epidemic of loneliness. And that doesn't mean that we don't have that many people around us, or I don't know people, or I'm not interacting with them. It's about not having enough meaningful relationships and friendships. So what can you add to that?
First off, I agree with it, and it is truly about what intimate relationships do you actually find. That's what I feel most people are craving when they're seeking some sort of companionship. They want an intimate dynamic, not necessarily sex, which can be part of the equation. Absolutely, it's part of our species as well. But they want just that quality relationship, but I think our human brains really first and foremost seek quantity rather than quality. And again, we were built to have around 150 contacts that generally knew us. And again, with these apps, they provide us the hope, sometimes the false hope, that you can connect intimately at a deep level with all billions of us. And again, on the other end of people who are feeding into that, so let's say influencers, but it's not just influencers, it's really anyone just using these platforms for what they're designed for. There's that, both sides can be feeding into that of, yes, you're special to me even though we've never met. Here's this parasocial relationship. And those parasocial relationships also have secondary gains. On one end, the follower gets to feel like they're connected to a person who's in the public eye, who's important, and the person in the public eye sometimes gets monetary gain from this, or they earn their income, they're living from this, and also at the same time can also receive some form of validation. So it's cyclical, is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and so it's important to kind of recognize which relationship is meaningful and is intimate, and we have that closeness of it. Which ones are just, let's say, it's work only, or it's just formality. That we have a good distinction between these two type of relationships. But what we are talking about more today is more of, let's say, partnership, romance, and someone who can kind of benefit from these partnerships. Maybe on the second part of the show we can more talk about that. But why being single might become comfortable? So some people say comfortably they are single. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, I love that phrase. So I've personally been using it since like 2023, ever since I started diving more into the literature and applying these principles more.
Meaning that when you are single, you say, I'm comfortably single?
Yeah, a person can be unpartnered and not miserable about it. Yeah, so comfortably single is being simply open to the idea of partnership and companionship, but not yearning for another person's time and attention. And during that era, it can be a very beautiful phase where you are working on yourself, developing oneself, or just enjoying the fruits of that self-development. And sure, some people give it the stigma that that's when one is promiscuous or such. Hey, if you want to enjoy your body during that era, you can. You also can during a partnered era as well. But what being comfortably single truly is the notion that I can be on my own, I can be self-sufficient, not necessarily independent. That kind of has that misnomer of pushing people away. One can be self-sufficient, open to the possibility of love and companionship, and still comfortable with oneself.
Yeah. In this topic that we're talking about, is there any difference between different cultures or diverse populations, or maybe, let's say, LGBTQ plus community, if that singlehood or being comfortable with being single or not, does that make any difference for different kind of diverse populations?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So sometimes when I suggest this to my clients of maybe we should move towards a positioning of being comfortably single, I see their eyes light up with fear. They enter panic mode because sometimes it directly contradicts what one's culture says a person should be. Sometimes one's culture values your partnership status to your age. Are you truly an adult if you are single? Are you truly a successful human being if you are unpartnered? Think about it. Have we ever had a U.S. president that was unpartnered? No.
No, never.
And we view that as
It's
a status.
It's the image.
Yes. We even have a name for the partner of the U.S. president. They're the first gentleman or the first lady. So we value it so much in our society. And then, yeah, crosswalk that to other cultures. Sometimes the dominant religion of a culture truly emphasizes and keeps like the institution of marriage sacred. Like I'm just thinking like in Hispanic culture, which tends to fall into Catholicism. Catholicism is one of what we call sacraments. So it's one of the sacred things you can do in life. So what happens if a person consciously chooses to not follow that path and, God forbid, so to speak, says that they're actually comfortable and happy about that? So it can really contradict a person's culture and positioning.
How about the community of the LGBTQ plus?
Yeah, so that's predominantly the community that I work with and serve, and there's its own unique challenges and complexities with that as well. So just for example, specific to men who have sex with men, there is a notion in the literature that healthy long-term companionship, whatever that looks like subjectively for people, tends to happen within the 4th decade of life, which is decades later than their heterosexual counterparts. So we already have just one snippet of the LGBTQ plus community, the Gs, already on their own timeline separate than their heterosexual counterparts. Or what happens when a person within the queer community, which I believe according to the most recent Gallup poll, is roughly, let's just say 8% of the species overall. 8% definitely of the United States as well. So of that snippet of 8% of 335 million, not everyone is compatible with everyone. You have men who have sex with men, or also known as gay men, But what happens when a gay man may try to date a transgender person? What if a transgender person identifies as heterosexual? So where does that place them? Mm-hmm. How does a pansexual person, what timeline do they follow in accordance with a bisexual person? So there's just so many intricacies and nuances that people don't really always think about, yet when they dive headfirst into dating, these are all brought to the surface, whether we like it or not.
All right. I think one more population we also can talk about in this realm is the older adults. Mm-hmm. Is there anything specific to older adults?
Absolutely. So throughout the lifespan, we are always evolving. We're a dynamic creature. And this is informed by my work, starting with my fellowship working with older adults, Wise and Healthy Aging in Santa Monica. Mm-hmm. And that's what brought me down to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And it's funny. I remember talking with my cohorts and also my supervisors at the time. Dating both remains the same throughout the lifespan and evolves throughout the lifespan. What I mean by that is I've worked with, for example, people in their 70s doing a behavior that I see sometimes adolescents doing. So for example, I've worked with a woman in her 70s. She pulled out her phone during a session and was reading text messages that she was exchanging with a gentleman she was trying to date. And she was basically decoding it with me in the session. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, I've also worked with children and adolescents too, and I've seen them do the exact same behaviors. They'll pull out their phone, they'll say, oh, this boy texted me this, what does that mean? What do you think that means? So on one hand, dating remains the same throughout the lifespan. We still have the same insecurities, we still have the same curiosities, and there's still that same drive to connect. And at the same time, our beautiful aging bodies also present its own concerns within the dating world. How does one's sex drive increase or decrease throughout the lifespan? How does one's ability to share intimacy through sex change throughout the lifespan? When is it appropriate? What type of differences in both parties also can evolve throughout the lifespan? So just so much going on.
Right, right. All right, Dr. Richard Espinoza, here we are at the mid of our show. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with you, and we will talk more about different ways of starting to date and meeting someone that might be considered as a partner. Be with us. We will be right back.
شما به آینه نگاه می‌کنید.
Hello again. I'm Dr. Peyman Raoofi, clinical psychologist, and we are with you on another episode of Expert Talk from Ayeneh Media. Today at the Ayeneh studio, I have my good friend, a very good clinical psychologist, a very good advocate, Dr. Richard Espinoza. We are talking about the important topic of dating, relationship, and diverse populations. And at the first section of our show, we talked about the being single and why it bothers some people and why some people are able to actually be comfortable with being single and so on. But now in this part of the show, I like to go into some of the ways and means that people can meet each other up. Traditionally, some people would just be referred or introduced by another person, and then they go meet up, or they only see each other, let's say, at the school, at work environment. This was the traditional way how people were meeting up. But these days we have social media, we have the all sorts of dating apps. Some of them are very creative, very interesting looking, and all that. So let's hear it from you. What are some of the ways that people can meet up?
Fair. So first off, I just want to take a moment to take a large step back for our species. So again, we're supposed to socialize with maybe a couple hundred people tops for that. And then what our species started doing was expanding, getting to know people, and realizing that sometimes we acquire belongings or assets, and how are we going to hold on to these things while people still continue to pair off, reproduce, and so forth. So then fast forward, every culture found its own way to unite at least two people. Sometimes it wasn't just limited to two people. Sometimes one partner had multiple partners, and people were generally considered property. And that still happens to this day in some cultures, in some various forms. And then fast forward again, we get to around the 1600s in Europe, where courtship came up. And that's not without saying that other cultures had their own form of matchmaking. So elders of the community usually would partner up two younger people and also take into account how much just wealth and property and assets that people owned. And this is generally how our species matched. And then again, take us back to the 1600s in Europe, then we had courtship, where, God forbid, people are allowed to, with the chaperone, choose their own partner. That's where I feel we have this colorful can of worms, so to speak, now. And fast forward to where we are now, what people were doing up until basically the 90s was going out in the wild, meeting people. So they were doing this at social interactions and such. And then my personal experience when I first learned about online dating was in the late 90s. I was with a neighborhood best friend of mine, and his dad was talking about meeting a woman on the internet. And so this is the late 90s. This is new for us all to hear about. And as a young person, I thought that was absurd. I was like, oh, you're dating a robot, like you're dating a computer or a woman who's projecting herself through a computer. Fast forward to now, they're actually still married decades. So currently, it's been so normalized to meet people now on the apps, on the internet, basically. And I myself have now gone to multiple weddings where people met on Tinder, for example. They met on OkCupid, some met on Grindr. So there's various ways to do that. That's the standard of what people do now. People meet online. It just is what it is. However, some of the things that I would encourage people to try out, and this is informed by the matchmaking work me and my business partner, Dr. Nazanin Moali, who's been on this show before, I believe.
Many times.
Okay, great. She's a regular. Now we're encouraging people to, yes, leverage technology as a tool, but let's bring it back to the human experience. There's parts of our brain dedicated to social interaction, to reading nonverbal cues, verbal cues, and to simply communicate face-to-face with another human being to truly understand their intentions, where they're at psychologically, physiologically right now, and to move forward from that. So we're not telling people, throw your phones in the trash, don't ever use an app again, but acknowledge that it's a tool. That's where we take it from.
All right, so is it going to be too much of it? Is there any limit into how much people use applications and how much time they spend and how much expectations they have from these applications? Is there anything called apps burnout?
Absolutely. And to summarize, that's the majority of the problems I'm hearing with people in the dating world right now. So I encourage my clients to acknowledge how much of this is a problem with the technology you're trying to meet people with, and then how much is it involved with maybe the social skills you're applying or lack thereof. So that's step one in the work that I do with people, and me and Dr. Moali apply. We first need to meet the person where they're at, and we need to find out, how are you trying to meet people? And then through what avenue are you taking? Is it the social avenue? Is it the phone application avenue? And then we really find out what are the pain points in either of those two methods. Because we're not saying that one is superior to the other. We're kind of hinting at that. But there's going to be pain points regardless. So like I've been saying, meet the person where they're at and then find out how they've been trying to find companionship, and then work with them from there.
Let me ask you this, because you do work as like matchmaking and how helping people to find partners and so on. Do you have a list of people that you can match with other people?
That's a good question. So with traditional matchmaking, what we think of is You work with the specialist, they create their own profile on you, and they keep it in their private database, and they do all the matchmaking behind the scenes. What Dr. Moali and myself are doing, we are challenging that. So we are initially doing some work behind the scenes. A person applies to our events, and they fill out our original screener, which is informed by multiple empirically validated measures and leveraging our skills as two clinical psychologists trained specifically in assessment. So that's the initial behind the scenes work that we do. They fill out our measure. Dr. Moali and myself, we both evaluate it, compare notes, and we also have the other people applying to us also complete our measure. So we develop our own internal profile and database, but with the intention of putting it all together and everything coming to fruition in an actual in-person event. So we're practicing what we preach. We're encouraging people to, yes, use technology as a tool. That's how you find us. You find us through our website, you find us through our social media outlets, and then you apply to us online. Our measure is online, but again, it's all with the intention and the clear knowledge that this is all going to be applied in person in a social event that we guide them through.
Is this assessment you're talking about, does that make this matchmaking psychology informed matchmaking?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, leveraging our skills as clinical psychologists trained in assessment. I specialize in vocation assessment, psychological and personality assessment, and Dr. Moali shares that same expertise. We also leverage our skills as couples therapists and people who have, in a sense, already applied the building blocks of matchmaking. We get to know someone individually. Then the measure itself, it's a conglomerate of questions that we've drawn from already existing literature that we've allowed for the review, for the feedback and input of our peers in various forms that helps fine-tune our measure. So we're trying to provide the best quality psychologically informed service for individuals who are just dealing with so much of this burnout from the apps.
So it is important that two people that they start dating or they want to think about making their relationship serious and get married and become partners for life, let's say, to be psychologically compatible. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a true statement?
1000%. Yes, because at the end of the day, drawing back to our conversation moments ago about people moving through the lifespan, we are all mortal creatures. We're all going to move through the lifespan. So the factors that may have initially brought someone's attention to you, such as their beauty, such as their intelligence, such as their athleticism, just for example, that's going to change and evolve throughout the lifespan. What keeps a couple together, we find, healthy, happy, fulfilling companionship is two people that just like each other, that just have partnership that includes friendship, that have common interests, that have aligned political values, aligned views on finances and economics, and aligned views on where the relationship could go. Do we start a family? What does that family look like? How do we both view challenges in life? So our measure is gearing more towards their personality because that's going to be the enduring factor that outlasts one's beauty, one's money, and one's physical prowess.
All right, I have so many questions to ask you, but maybe in our next episodes that you and I sit together, I will ask you more about details. But I wanna ask you about this. Is there any unique challenge related to the LGBTQ plus community when they want to date or they seek a kind of matchmaking service? Is there any unique challenge for them?
Absolutely. First and foremost, being informed by my work predominantly with members of the queer community and our allies, we're just a smaller subset of the population. So again, roughly 8% of 335 million individuals in the United States. That still does cut us down. And not everyone is compatible. Not everyone of the heterosexual community, our counterparts, are compatible. So the unique challenges we see can be issues related to one's comfortableness within where their placement is on the spectrum of masculinity, femininity, or perhaps a non-binary identity. There could also be challenges regarding an individual seeking companionship but still wrestling with notions of perhaps internalized homophobia, heterosexism, homonegativity, to just name a few. So there are unique challenges, so there's less of us. Some of us have our own trauma that we still deserve to process. I'm not stigmatizing my community, but I am acknowledging that the LGBTQ plus community does deal with a disproportionate amount of trauma, oftentimes from our early infancy that we can't even fully recall, but can unconsciously recall. Sometimes one example is rejection from one of our parents early on. Parents are very smart. So they know when their child is not like them or just a little bit different. And sometimes that leads to the initial traumatic event someone in the queer community survives. An additional unique challenge you see, fast forward from that point, often on a first date, people in the queer community joke on how they want to gauge how much they trauma dump on each other on a first date. One of those examples is simply asking people, who are you out to? Which in a sense is saying, who are you truly authentic to in your social circles, including your family? Has your family rejected you? This often comes up in a first date, and that's very unique to the queer community.
And why is that important to ask?
It's important because when you're trying to date somebody, you're trying to possibly merge your life with somebody else, it really behooves you to first and foremost be authentic with yourself. And then there's a whole other human you're trying to merge your life with. Is that other person across from you living their best authentic life as well? So again, this potential trauma dump can happen on the first date.
So there is a benefit to this question. It shows that how much that person knows him or herself and knows the origin of the trauma coming from. So that question and the answer to it is going to clear that up.
It is important. So this is now speaking to my fellow psychotherapists who may be viewing this. Think about how important it is to ask somebody if they've had thoughts of ending their life or not being alive. It's mildly uncomfortable, even for us as the clinicians, sometimes for the client as well, but it's important. And that's why it's so important that we ask it in the first intake. So similarly, I've always personally viewed, no matter who's going on a first date is like a clinical interview because you're trying to find out as much information you can on a person in a short amount of time, much like an intake. So yes, the hard-hitting, sometimes traumatic memory inducing questions, they need to be asked.
So it's important to ask that question. All right, let me ask you about this. There is something called out there speed dating. So there is an event and people sit in front of each other on turns, and then they keep talking, ask questions, and then the next person, and then the next person. Is there any benefit to that?
Initially, I had high hopes for it. So again, I guess I've just always been very mindful of the dating and matching experience throughout my lifespan. In the early 2000s, I started hearing speed dating becoming more popularized. And yeah, to be brief, a number of people assemble, all with the intention of dating. They go on maybe 5-minute dates, and then they cycle through and rotate. Initially, it sounds like a great idea, and I was very enthused. I wanted to try it out as soon as possible. And I've attended multiple speed dating events in the past, too. It still left me wanting more. I think at least the events I attended, they were facilitated by individuals who had good intentions, but just simply weren't licensed mental health providers. So they didn't fully understand the nuances of what it's like to have worlds collide in a setting, and with all people having good intentions, possibly bringing up past baggage and such, and not really knowing how to facilitate that. So I could go on and we can have like 12 more episodes talking about some of the horror stories I have from speed dating events. But I think it's a good try, and I think it's a good intention, and that's why Dr. Morley and myself, as humble as possible, we think we can do better. And we want to provide a premium service to individuals who are seeking love. We want to make that experience as easy as possible, because right off the bat, finding love, it's challenging.
It is very challenging, and it has become like a problem for a lot of people that I also see. Then they are single and they really want to find a partner to have their life with. let's go back to the LGBTQ plus community. There is this kind of notion or misunderstanding, or I call it a myth, that the LGBTQ plus community at times they are not looking for having a partner or having like a married frame of family. They rather to have different partners, the multiple sex partners, and so on and so forth. How that is not true.
So first and foremost, we do have to acknowledge the literature does support that, specifically men that have sex with men. So that's just the G. I think that's sign language. That's just the G in the whole queer alphabet. Men who have sex with men do have typically a higher number of sexual partners than their heterosexual counterparts. But that's just one subset of the queer community. So there is that. But when is this happening? Is this happening throughout their lifespan? Not necessarily. Is this happening in an era of their life? That's mostly what I'm hearing from my clients. So sure, people in the queer community, one small subset, could have more sexual encounters, sure. But we don't want to stigmatize that. Switch it over to the heterosexual counterparts, well, actually no, I'm going to take a step back. All relationships that initially begin as monogamous, where both parties agree to only have sexual and intimate relations with each other, 1 and 2 relationships does report infidelity. That's also very parallel to the divorce rate, but that still is something separate. So of self-report, 1 and 2 partnerships long-term does report someone going outside of the relationship. And this is those who report that. So my argument is perhaps members of the queer community who lean more towards ethical non-monogamy are simply being honest, i.e. ethical, of their behaviors rather than other communities that still seem to demonstrate the same behaviors extradiatically, but maybe don't talk about it.
All right, Dr. E, we are almost towards the end of our show, but I want to give this time to you. If there is anything specific you want to mention about the apps, Burnout, about matchmaking, dating, relationship, it's your time.
So what I would say, if anyone is feeling some social pain, some loneliness, that's normal and that's healthy. You are a human who's part of a social species, and it's totally okay to seek companionship and partnership. If that experience becomes more uncomfortable, like a sense of yearning or a sense of a lack of belongingness, it's totally appropriate to then seek authentic, meaningful partnership. And I treat the apps and the internet kind of like safe sex. So the kids are going to do it. If you're going to do it, I support you, at least do it safely. So if you're going to do a phone app, if you're going to do a website and create a profile, okay, we support you. I just encourage you, create an honest, real thorough profile of yourself. Do some real internal inventory, do some real work on yourself, maybe talk with a psychotherapist, and then use online means for dating. Then, if it doesn't work out, again, we support you. Maybe try something authentic and in person, like our events.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Espinoza. I appreciate your time, knowledge, and experience that you shared with us in this show. I hope that we can have a few more so we can talk more in details about the dating and relationships. Thank you so much for seeing our show and being with us. We appreciate your continued support. If you have any suggestions and if you want to share with us any topics that you would like us to talk about it in this show, please share it with us through the email address that is on your screen. And thank you so much. Until next time.
Thank you.
Expert Talk.